Hey, so this is the Drunkalogs, a podcast about addiction and recovery in which each guest shares their version of how it was, what happened, and how it is now, and then endures a half-hour Q&A at the hands of your host, Nick Morton. Sometimes it's amazing to me that with all my privilege and advantages, I've still struggled to make it through this life. And yet my next guest had none of that. Absentee parents running from their own mess, inflicting their trauma on their poor kids, and somehow he too found a way through. A way that was aided and abetted by drug and alcohol abuse, but a way nonetheless. He has 2 books out now, The Wisdom of the Rooms and The 12 Steps, A Modern Hero's Journey, which the Kirkus Review called unexpectedly gripping. Won't you please welcome Michael Z. Okay, well, so let's do it then, Michael Z. So, where are you from?
Los Angeles originally, 50 years there. And then about, I'd say, 12 years ago, my wife and I moved, and that's a whole story. We moved, of all things, right outside Raleigh, North Carolina, which is where we are now.
Amazing. And how long have you been sober? You are sober, right?
Yeah, 29 years right now.
Right. So, so you were born at what part of LA?
San Fernando Valley, baby. I'm a dude. So,
nice. What part of the valley?
Van Nuys, and then I lived mostly in Woodland Hills. So,
nice. That's I imagine was kind of a paradise back then.
Yeah, it grew hot and crowded.
So, and you have siblings?
Oh yes, yeah. 2. They're right now. They're actually all back in the San Fernando Valley. 2 older brothers and 1 older sister.
And your childhood was more or less happy?
Not remotely. It was a nightmare.
In what way?
Well, yeah, let's start with an abusive, alcoholic father, traumatized from World War II.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, my home life was like, the bottom line is, as soon as we heard his car rumble down the block, we all went on red alert. It was red alert time. Hide wherever you could. Don't make him mad. Watch out, because hell is a coming. And so my mother and my older sister, they basically became Al-Anon, poster kids, trying to keep the damage down. And he would take it mostly out on my older brother. My other older brother had already left the house. He's 14 years older than I am. And I was the baby. So I was kind of not quite sure what was happening, but I could feel the tension. It was palpable.
And the nature of the abuse was physical, or was it just raging, or was it both?
Raging, and then it did bleed into physical, although I was never physically assaulted. So there was always that threat.
Right.
Oftentimes carried out, but it was pretty bad.
What did he do for work?
He was a mechanic.
Right.
He was a mechanic. Yeah.
Nice. And when did you sort of pick up your first drink?
Well, I'm just going to say one last thing about that is things didn't get better because my mother met a Mexican guy, and they moved out together. So I never saw my father again. One day I woke up, ready to go to kindergarten, I guess, and they threw boxes in my bedroom. Said, "Pack, we're leaving." Say, "What?" "Yeah, we're leaving. Let's go. Hurry up. Chop chop." My dad drove away for work. He came home. We cleared out. I never saw him again.
Never saw him again.
Never saw my father again. And now,
from the time you were how old?
5, 6, maybe.
Wow. And where'd you guys go?
We went to an apartment across town, San Fernando Valley still. And about 2-3 weeks later, this guy started, the guy started coming around right away. Fernando was his name. And then one day he spent the night, and the next thing you know, he's my new stepdad. They never married, obviously. And he was a nightmare by himself. And then soon after that, my mom, Fernando, and me left my 16-year-old brother and 17-year-old sister to fend for themselves. Here, the rent's due next Monday. Better get a job and hurry about that. And that was the end. Next thing you know, I'm a fugitive on the road, changing my name It was a freaking nightmare, dude. It was a
Wait,
freaking
that's so intense. So your brother and sister are left in the house, and where do you go with your mother and
as my stepfather would call it, we went to Albuquerque. Albuquerque.
right.
Yeah, of course.
And was
Yeah,
your dad looking for you? Do you have any
probably,
idea?
probably. That's probably why we changed our names.
Right. Wow.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and that was a nightmare. And that whole childhood, I went to 4 different fifth grades because we kept moving. So basically, the what you hear about alcoholics, right? I never felt like I fit in. Yeah,
Sure.
and I never did. And my stepfather was so secretive that I was not allowed to have any friends. I was not
Hmm.
allowed to trade anything. Yeah, you're kids, you trade shit. I'll give you that
Right.
card, 2 more. I can't do any of that. Can't go over to anybody's house. Can't have, heaven forbid, don't let anybody come to the motel we're holed up in.
Hmm.
So I was basically cut off, and he was a nightmare too. So I basically, my fear inventory when I got sober was giant. And I didn't even know I was driven by 100 forms of self-centered fear.
Wow. And what about your brother and sister? How did they survive?
They leaned on my oldest brother, right? He
Uh-huh.
would sign the lease for a new apartment. My sister got a job. My brother got a job. And they were alcoholics, addicts themselves. But they, like everybody else in this world, they muggled through.
Wow, this is amazing. And so did you guys stay in Albuquerque
No,
for
no. As I said, we went to 4 different. My Fernando could never keep a job down because he was a very, very proud guy, and
right,
people hated Mexicans back there, had
sure,
derogatory names for them, and he wasn't putting up with any shit. So
right.
we moved around a lot. Whenever he would finally run out of money, and they didn't have any really, but if he was out of work for more than 2 weeks, they would drive back to the San Fernando Valley, move in with my sister until they recouped, got a job, and he saved another $100, and then we take off again.
And was your sister still living with your brother at that point, or had she found
Oh,
her own
yeah.
place?
Oh no, she was still with my brother, but when we came back the first time, the brother he left and moved in with his best friend so they could smoke more dope. And
Wow.
yeah, so it was yeah. So he asked me a question: when did I have my first drink? Well, I'll never forget. I was very tightly controlled. So when I entered the 10th grade, my mother put her foot down. We had moved back to the San Fernando Valley. My sister moved in with us into her apartment. Fernando wanted to leave again. And my mom said, I'm not leaving. Michael's going to stay in high school for 3 years. So I have to move on.
Wow.
And she finally put her foot down. Now, remember, so I get enrolled at Grant High School in the San Fernando Valley. I've got no friends. All the people who went to Grant from a junior high school and had long form, I knew nobody. First two
Right.
years, I didn't eat lunch with anybody. I was still
Right.
completely by myself. So in the 12th grade, I started to loosen up a little bit, not much. I still couldn't go out on Friday or Saturday nights. But one Friday night, I don't know how I got out of the house, but I did. And a guy I knew in school, 12th grade now, beginning of 12th grade, invited me over to his house with a couple of other guys. I said, sure, wow, an invitation. Oh my gosh, sure, let's do it. Of course, when we got there, they had bought 2 bottles of Schlitz malt liquor, 2 big bottles. I'm not drinking. I'm not smoking. I'm doing nothing. My good time in those days was to walk around the corner to the Gelson's Market, buy a box of Mystic Mint cookies, and come home and watch The Night Stalker. That was my Friday night those days. All right, that was my big time out. So anyway, so suddenly I find myself in this guy. I think his name is Dan. I'm in Dan's bedroom with 2 other guys. We sit in a circle, and they start passing the Schlitz malt. And of course, it gets to me. I don't even know what to do with it. All I'm thinking is I'm going to be in big, big trouble. So I started drinking with these guys, and of course, it had its effects. Suddenly, I was one of the boys. Suddenly, there was actually a life outside of my 17 years prior experience. And then, that was phenomenal. I didn't get too much trouble when I got home. Then I met a girl, and she introduced me to sex, drugs, and rock and roll.
Are you there?
I am.
Sorry, my internet stopped working right at the moment you said I met a girl. I mean, what a cliffhanger. So you
Oh
met
yeah,
a girl, and then what happened?
she introduced me to sex, drugs, and rock and roll.
Nice. I
Yeah.
mean, thank God. I gotta say, alcohol for all of its problems. I mean, this is a nice story to me. I mean, I would much rather have you sitting in a room with some dudes, drinking malt liquor, meeting girls. I don't care the price you had to pay for this ultimately. It's got to be better than suffering the hand of instability and insecurity and fear at the hand of your mom, Fernando, and your fucking
Oh,
father. So,
oh, no, fucking hell. And I'll tell you something. There's a saying in the program that I don't agree with. Some people might hate me, but fuck them. Here's the deal. I love that. There's a great saying. I heard this guy at a podium, and he was going off, and he's like, I know some of you are going to hate me right now, and I'm going to recommend you pray for me because I can sure use the prayers, and you could probably use the practice. I love that saying. It's just a great saying. But you know what? There's a saying in the program that says, my worst day sober is still better than my best day drunk and using. Well, you just didn't drink and use right, because I got news. I had some killer decades drinking and using. I mean, pull yourself together. It was good for a long, long time.
I agree. I mean, I feel like I wonder though, like how much of that is just the body chemistry of youth, like because and I mean partly the discovery of it certainly, like, it gets old, it gets familiar, like it stops being a gateway to adventure is really the problem. At first, it really was for me, like you, it was like, oh, let's get crazy, like here's an opportunity to like, yeah, leave Nick behind and just get out in the world and, see what it's about without all these like hangups. But it stops working. And so,
It does.
I feel like when I look at my own kids, certainly my daughter who's now 18, and like she's like a theater nerd, and she's an outdoors adventure person, and like whatever, she'll drink with her friends, but like she has these other outlets through which to experience the sort of euphoria that I could only access through drugs and alcohol. So
Yeah.
anyway,
Yeah.
so this girl, she introduces you to sex, drugs, and rock and roll. And how is it? It's epic. It's good. He's saying 2 thumbs up.
It's beyond epic. I remember this one experience I had somehow lied and got out, and her parents were gone, and she was minding her sister, and she was in walking distance, and I walked and spent the night with her. I'm smoking Carlton cigarettes in those days, and it was it was beyond epic. And that next morning, I had to go to work at the Sizzler, and I left her apartment. I walked over to the bus station, and I lit a cigarette. And as I got onto the bus, and looked at all the people on the bus, I just had, we'd made love all night.
Mm-hmm.
I suddenly felt like I looked at all the adults, and I suddenly knew the secret. And I was now a part of the club.
Right.
And I realized why men were afraid to die, because they would miss that epic experience.
Right. Right.
Epic experience. And I remember having that thought very clearly, but it was absolutely wonderful. And I had moved out by then. But then I moved out when I was 17, still in high school, working 3 part-time jobs. Fernando wanted to move to Sacramento, and I said, "Fuck that! I'm not fucking that. Goodbye." Moved into my own apartment. By the time I had my own apartment in high school, it was party central, man. Everybody came to my house, my apartment, and it was crazy. And I'm talking, and Quaaludes, and I'm talking lots of great alcohol and pot and Colombian, and pot was a big drug for me. And
Right.
well, the thing about pot for me, and I know it's a big problem these days, but it wasn't as potent in those days.
Right.
But the thing about that is, if I took one hit of pot, suddenly I was completely present.
Right.
There was no fear because there was no tomorrow, and there
Mhm.
wasn't even the next hour. There was this moment, and in this
Right.
moment, we all know it's perfect. It's there. It's all good. Couldn't be better.
Totally.
And
Totally.
that's what pot did for me. Like that, alcohol too. As soon as I, got a buzz on, all the fear left me, and that's why it was the drug that allowed me to, feel comfortable in my own skin.
So, what happens? Do you graduate from high school?
Oh, you bet I did. Sure I did. Yeah.
Do you go to college?
Well, yeah. What happened is I, got a job first, and then I started being a hardwood floor carpenter apprentice, and then I found out that my father died, and as part of that death, if I went to college, junior college, I could get $250 a month from his whatever government something.
Right.
Well, I did. So I went back to school, and I was just party central as well. And it was, those were great times too, junior college and all that sort of thing. And yeah, went to England, went to Amsterdam, and that was
Had you seen your father before you found out he
never,
died?
never did.
Right.
Never
Your
did.
siblings, did they see him at all?
My sister did, and my brother did, but he
Right.
grew more and more belligerent.
Right.
My sister was afraid to go over, and he would be there with a couple of his friends giving her the evil eye, and she's like thinking she's gonna fucking get raped, so she left.
Right.
Didn't go. She used to untreated Alan. She used to go and clean his house.
Right.
My
Sure.
brother went with his new wife to introduce him. They were both freaked out by him, so they didn't go back either.
Wow. That's intense.
Intense.
And so what happens from there, junior college?
I kept working, kept drinking. It was the 80s. And then I'll never forget the day that John Lennon got shot. I had decided, being a hardwood floor carpenter, I'll never forget, I went to a job, and I show up, and I'm filthy dirty. I'm covered in, clothes that are sawdust and stain
Sure.
and lacquer, and, my hair's a mess. I've gotten real stoned before I even went to the job. And I went to this house in Hollywood to do sand this guy's floor. Never forget, it was a pivotal moment for me. He opened up the door, and he was in a beautiful starched white business shirt, and there was a BMW in the driveway. And here I am, I'm like the nightmare kid, probably 18. And, he turned stuff, he gave us the keys and showed us what to do, and he drove off and went to work. And in that moment, I realized that if I kept sanding floors and getting stoned, I was going to be like one of the guys I worked with, who was about 20 years older than me, who was, doing the same shit. But this guy, there's another life out there. And I decided at that moment, when I got off work, I went to Valley Junior College again because I wanted to meet with a counselor. I wanted to go to UCLA because my other brother had gone to UCLA. And I wanted to be a white collar worker. I wanted to be able to have a business shirt and a BMW. And it wasn't going to happen if I was sanding floors and smoking pot. So I did. I went back. I had to go back to a junior college and take, dumb math, and then algebra 1, and all the way up to calculus with business applications. And I graduated. I got studied in the line. I mean, I could, as an alcoholic, I could say, you know what, not drinking, not using now. I'm gonna do this. And I did that. And I got A's, and I transferred to UCLA. I graduated from UCLA. And then my oldest brother, I was going to go on and become a psychologist. My oldest brother, on Mother's Day, we were taking my mom to brunch. Met at the bar. He's an alcoholic, by the way, been an alcoholic forever. He got me into telemarketing. He said, "What's your plan?" I said, "Well, I'm going to work 2 jobs, save $5,000, go around the world for a few months, and then go to grad school." He looked at me and he said, "Why not go around the world with $50,000?" I said, "Well, yeah, right. Why don't I just take a jet?" He said, "No, I'll show you how to do it." He got me into sales, and then I was off. It was back into drinking and using again, and being on the phone selling raunchy investments.
Literally raunchy investments, or
Yeah, Yeah, they all turned out. Most of them turned out to not have worked out.
But what were they? Were they just like you were just like a
Oil and
boiler
gas,
room,
or
basically?
yeah, boiler room, oil and gas partnerships,
Right. Hmm.
which I believe
Um,
and bought into myself. What a
That's so brutal. Yeah.
I
I
mean,
had another guy on this podcast who did that for a while, and then like, he discovered like the fallacy of what he was selling at some
yeah,
point. I think it
yeah,
was once he got sober, but
yeah.
and how long did that last, that boiler room job?
I you know,
World.
yeah, there was a world. So you went from room to room to room to room to
Right.
room, looking for a better commission, a new story, new clients, all that
Right.
sort of thing.
Sure.
Yeah, it went on quite a while. It went on quite a while
Did you
into
make some
sobriety.
good money?
Yeah, I did. I turned out to be one of the top closers there.
Nice.
Yeah, yeah,
And so do you get married at some point in this story?
yeah. Much later, much later, much
So
later.
what happens between when do you get sober?
All right. So what happened is my very best friend, who I used to party with, and we did a nightclub together, and we were members of the Wine of the Month Club, and we used to buy pot and split them. I mean, it was big friend, best friend. He stopped hanging around with me. I didn't have no idea he got sober. And
Right.
about 6 years after he got sober, I had finally hit a bottom, like a
Right.
real bottom. And he had challenged me the year before. He bought me a big book, and I was so insulted. I couldn't believe he bought me a big book. I didn't even know what Alcoholics Anonymous was.
Right.
And I put it in my kitchen, and I put my cocktail shaker on top of it. So it was, but he said, if you can stay sober for a year, you're probably not an alcoholic. I said, fine, I'm not going to drink anymore for a year. And I stopped that day.
Right.
But I didn't go to meetings, so I was the most angry person on the planet. But I stayed sober because
Right.
don't tell me I'm not doing it. So
Sure.
14 months later, he and I are in Mexico. I order a pitcher of margaritas because I'm fine now. Well, he
Yeah.
over that, but of course, that was it for me. I just took off. Very quickly after that, I did hit a bottom, and I called him, and I drunk while
What was your bottom like? Like, what was the nature of it that felt
well,
like such a bottom to you?
well, the bottom line for me is I could always stop drinking when I said I was going to stop drinking.
Right.
And it was around September, I remember, and I had been drinking too much. I was out of work. I was unemployable, and
Hmm.
I didn't want a job. I was sick
Right.
of that world, I didn't know what to do with my life. But I didn't know what to do. So I was at the Sagebrush Cantina
Hmm.
in Calabasas, September. And I'm a big list maker. I took a pen and a piece of paper, and I said, all right, I'm out of control. I need to pull it together. I'm only going to allow myself to drink 4 more times this year:
Hmm.
Halloween, Thanksgiving, um, Christmas, and New Year's Eve. Those are
Uh-huh.
the only times I'm going to drink again this year. And I felt so good about that decision. I ordered a pitcher of beer for myself and a shot of tequila because it wasn't tomorrow yet. Tomorrow was going to be a Monday. So anyway, on Monday I was drunk by noon, and that wasn't part of the plan at all.
Right.
I knew
Right.
I was in trouble. I called my friend. I said, I need to go to one of those meetings you go to. And he said the darndest thing. He said, tell you what, when you sober up tomorrow, if you're still sober and you still want to go to a meeting, call me. And I thought, well, you shouldn't wait until tomorrow, man. I'm desperate now. You should take me while I can. I said, all right, fine, whatever. So I called him the next day. He took me to a meeting. I got a sponsor that night. He sicked somebody on me named Mike W., which was great. And Mike became my sponsor. I started going to meetings. 90 days sober, I was real shaky. And I went to my Wednesday meeting. They didn't have a 90-day chip. I left and went and drank.
Right.
But I kept coming back because they told me to keep coming back. So I kept coming to meetings, drinking between meetings. And I never forget, I went to a Saturday night meeting. A guy who I really respect, a guy named Jeffrey Longhair, really cool guy. I was in part of a really cool group because my friend introduced me to it. I raised my hand as a newcomer again, and everybody said, oh, Michael, keep coming back. Well, he got into my face after the meeting. He walked right up to me. I thought he was going to say, hey, keep coming back. He looked at me and said, what the fuck are you doing? What the fuck are you doing? You need to stop fucking around and get sober now. Whoa. So a few weeks after that, man, my sobriety date is January the 13th. And I got sober and I did the deal. And I worked the steps, I knuckled through, I called my sponsor, I got commitments, I went to more than 120 meetings in 120 days. My resistance was worn down. I didn't think I was going to make it many days, but I did what my sponsor said, and I didn't drink and use that day. And when I wanted to have a beer, he said he'd buy me one the next day. I said, I'm going to freaking hold you to this. And the next day I didn't want one. So one day at a time.
That's great.
One day at a time. I didn't drink and use. Next thing you know, then the miracles started. They say that this program is a program of 1,000 surrenders, and I certainly feel that that's true. I have to surrender over and over again in different things, and sometimes the same things, and sometimes many times in the day. But as long as I surrender and turn my will and my life over to a power greater than myself, and that was trying to understand what that power was. I still don't understand what it is. It doesn't get clearer for me these days. It gets more expansive. All I know is it works if I work it. And if I turn my will and my life over and I take the actions, then I get miracles because I get better than I could have wanted for myself. In fact, if I got only what I wanted for myself, I would have shortchanged myself over and over again.
It's crazy.
It's that gypsy curse, you know. May you get everything you think you want.
Totally. And so what were some of the miracles?
Well, first of all, the promises came true for me, and I never thought they would. I never thought that the fear of economic insecurity would leave me. I never thought that I would discover a career path that would work for me. I never thought that I could, and this is the biggest one, I never thought I could be comfortable in my own skin. And I'm comfortable in my own skin today. I intuitively know how to handle things which used to baffle me beyond belief. I have a solution today that works under any circumstances. It works when I work it. And around 12 years sober, I had to enter there have been many 12-step programs. I had to enter another 12-step program, one that led directly to me meeting the woman of my dreams.
What was the other 12-step program?
SLAA.
Right, sure. That seems to be where everyone goes eventually.
You know, it's the disease of alcoholism just finds its next open door. That's what I found.
For sure. And what did you, career-wise, what happened to you?
I ended up using the skills that I had in closing sales over the phone, and I became an internationally recognized inside sales trainer.
Oh, interesting. Right.
Yeah.
So you took that skill set and basically sold it to other companies who need to train their employees to sell stuff.
Yeah. And then I discovered what's going to be a big part of my program. I discovered that I know how to write, and I certainly know how to write phone scripts because I'm the best on the phone that there ever was. So I can help others do that by writing scripts that don't sound salesy and that are. So I started writing books on that subject as well. But
amazing.
Yeah. But the real amazing thing is that now I was single until I was 50 years old.
Right.
Never married. And through that other program, I was able. My sponsor was on me to start online dating after I worked the steps. And I said, there's no way in hell that I'm ever going to date online, ever. Number one, I'm too old. Number two, I'm not doing it again, ever. And he said, are you willing? I said, not at all. He said, are you willing to be willing? I said, maybe. I'll think about that. And so he kept on me. And just to get him off my back, I had attended a meeting. And this woman shared that she had tried a new dating website, and she hadn't met anybody for her, but she met really good quality people. So I went up to her after the meeting, found out what it was. I told my sponsor, just to show you, I'm going to try this website and I'm going to show you that this doesn't work.
Right.
So I put my profile on there. It's the kind of thing where you can't communicate other people. They have to match you up and they have to.
Right.
2 weeks, here's a miracle. 2 weeks after joining that website, I was sitting across the dinner table from my wife.
Wow. What's the website? Can you share?
Yeah, it's chemistry.com.
Right. Nice.
And yeah, and we, I was 12 years sober at the time, and we're celebrating our 17th wedding anniversary in November, a month from now.
Amazing.
I've never been more happy in my life. It's a ridiculously perfect relationship. My best friend calls me the happiest married man on the planet. We're so compatible and so in love. It's ridiculous.
That's amazing.
No, it's beyond. She's the best woman for me
Right.
So that's a miracle. But and then go ahead.
No, go ahead.
And then there's the other miracle of my story, which I'm just so grateful to be able to do. As I said, I discovered that I had a talent for writing.
Mhm.
And so when I got sober, I used to hear these sayings in the rooms. We hear the wisdom of the rooms is what I call them. And we hear these just wonderful sayings. I started copying them down. And then I started writing 3 paragraphs of my experience, strength, and hope. What it was like, what happened, what it's like now. And I started sending them out to friends in the program, and they would send them to their friends. And next thing you know, I put a tiny website together, and you can opt in for free. You still can. It's called thewisdomoftherooms.com. And every Monday I send out a free quote. Well, fast forward like 20 years, I had written individual volumes with 54 quotes. Anyway, I wrote 365, collected 365 of these, and it's a daily reader. You can get it on Amazon anywhere you look. It's called The Wisdom of the Rooms. I've never promoted it, by the way, ever.
Right.
It's all opt-in, word of mouth. I have subscribers in 34 countries. It's got like 350 5-star reviews, unsolicited by me. People call it a meeting in a pocket, in their pocket.
That's
but some
so
of the
great.
quotes,
Wow.
Nick, some of the quotes are just they're frickin' gems. Here's a few of them. There's just some of my favorite.
Sure.
The only thing an alcoholic does in moderation is work the steps. I mean, that's such
That's hilarious.
well, I don't think I want. Let's take it easy. Another one is half measures do avail us something. It's just the half we don't want.
For sure.
So there are just wonderful. It's my way of giving back.
Sure.
Sharing this wisdom, sharing the experience, strength, and hope. And then recently, I had an experience. I had an epiphany when I was 3 years sober. You and I talked a bit about Joseph Campbell and the hero with 1,000 faces, the archetype of that journey, separation, initiation, and return. And I read 3 years sober. I read The Hero with 1,000 Faces, and I had this epiphany. And the epiphany was this journey, the hero's journey, is exactly to the step, the 12-step journey I'm on right now. Every part of the hero's journey matches up exactly with the hero's journey. And I was blown away. And I started making notes. I started getting notebooks. I started doing other research. I started writing outlines. Over the years, 2012, I wrote the first draft. 2015, I wrote the second draft. 2018, I wrote the third draft. I wrote and wrote and wrote and wrote, and I finally perfected it to the point where I called the publisher who did the Wisdom of the Rooms, and I said, I've got what I think is, the truth about the steps. I sent it to them. They bought it in 3 days, and it was just released about a month ago on the 9th of September. And the reviews have you ever heard of Kirkus reviews?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, Kirkus reviews, they read it. They liked it so much, they nominated it for their literary prize in nonfiction, $50,000 prize.
Wow.
He said
Jeez.
they called it wonderfully smart and knowing, unexpectedly gripping. And that's
Wow. How cool. Wait, what's the title again?
it's called The 12 Steps, A Modern Hero's Journey.
Oh, great. I'm
And
excited to check that out.
you please do. You'll really, really, especially given your background, you'll really resonate. It's written really, really well, I must say. I'm a nerd.
Right.
I'm a history buff. I'm a deep, and I mean deep thinker. And that's why the subject appealed to me so much. But what I do is I take examples of like Luke Skywalker,
Hmm.
Harry Potter, The
Hmm.
Wizard of Oz, one of my favorites. And I use this over and over again. Remember that movie Groundhog Day?
Sure.
Bill Murray? Well, that's the
Yeah, of course.
classic example of refusing the call. It's the classic example
Right.
because he refuses his call to change. And he
Right.
tries to have it his way day after day after day, manipulating people, stealing money, it's self-will run riot. And
Right.
what happens with the hero's journey, as you know, right? The hero gets a call to adventure, Luke Skywalker, and there's the drone, Princess Leia, come
Hmm.
help. His sponsor or mentor, Obi-Wan Kenobi, says, let's go save the universe. And Luke refuses his call. Can't do that. I'm working on the moisture farmer. The uncle's going to kill
Right.
me. I'm in big trouble. Anyway, he goes back, gets his second call, right? The uncle's been killed.
Hmm.
Goes off on the adventure. He's a brash know-it-all, right? They're going to that intergalactic bar, and Ben says, you better be careful. I can handle anything. Of course, he has to be saved himself.
Right. Sure.
And Ben, Obi-Wan Kenobi, his mentor, which, by the way, that word comes from Odysseus. When Odysseus was going to, in Homer, when he was going to go on his adventure, Odysseus was a loving father. He had a son, and he needed somebody to help raise his son while he was gone. He asked his best friend if he would be willing to raise his son. His
Hmm.
best friend said, certainly. His best friend's name, mentor. That's where the word
Right.
comes.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah. And you see, the mentor's role in the hero's journey is to introduce the hero to the source zones of great power, the power that can change them.
Hmm.
That's what Ben does. He introduces Luke to the
Sure.
force. And of course, we have a mentor. It's called a sponsor. What is a
Right.
sponsor? He introduces us to the source zones of supernatural power called God, higher
Right.
power. And it's that higher power that allows us to change. So anyway, and then of course we get companions, right? Think about Luke, he has companions. Think about Harry Potter, Ron and Hermione, those are
Sure.
and we have companions, right? So we have to cross the threshold and then we enter the journey. It's called the road of trials, the initiation phase. What's the first thing that happens to the hero? They enter the abyss. They go into the cave. Think about Iron Man and Tony
Hmm.
Stark. He goes into the cave and he gets a new heart. He comes out transformed. And of
Right.
course, we go into the abyss. Well, in the book, in the chapter 4, I take a saying from Nietzsche. Nietzsche says, when you look into the abyss also looks into you. And we call the abyss the fourth step. And that's when
Right.
we look into ourselves. And
Right. Right.
so every step, I use examples, I quote obviously Joseph Campbell. I use all these stories. And then, of course, one of my favorite stories of all, and I'll just get a card here, see if you can see this. Do you know who this person is here?
Yep. No, I don't.
That is one of the most important persons in the program. Her name is Sister Ignacia. Do you know
Uh-huh.
Sister Ignacia?
I mean, I feel like I've heard her mentioned, but I'm definitely not a scholar of the program, so.
I go into that in depth because she has her own hero's journey. Sister Ignacia was the helper of Dr. Bob, and
Uh-huh.
she was the one that made it possible for the alcoholics to be put into the hospital, because in those days they didn't want alcoholics in the
Right.
hospital. They
Sure.
couldn't stay. They were a pain in the ass. They were ungrateful, wrecked
Right.
everything. Well, she was the one that was able to carve out a space for alcoholics. And in fact, a couple of interesting side notes about her. This is another thing that I got online. This is a little medallion. It's a Sacred Heart medallion,
Uh-huh.
and this is right from 1934 too. When somebody was
Wow.
released from the hospital, Sister Ignacia gave them that medallion and said,
Uh-huh.
If you want to drink, you have to bring this medallion back to me first.
Amazing.
And they're like, they're not going to do that. Well, guess where that's where our chip system came from. It came from
amazing. That's so cool.
Not only that, but she coined the term, and she helped sell this to the hospitals, that we're going to treat alcoholics, and we're going to develop and have developed a treatment program that rehabilitates alcoholics. That's where the word treatment came from.
Right.
Sister Ignacia.
Right.
So you're going to find out all this stuff in the book, but more importantly, and this is, I'll end with this, the whole point of the hero's journey is to take, and by the way, it comes from the rite of passage when these kids when the village needed another man, they take the kids, haul them off to a cave. The shaman would cut their foreskin off and do all kinds of
whatever. Sure.
And they go through rites of initiation. They come back to the village. There weren't kids anymore. They had the rights and privileges of an adult. The societies needed these adults to help thrive, and that's what the program's about. And that's what the journey's about. It takes a mature kid, ego focused, transforms them into somebody who now gives. Right. And the most important thing that the journey does, and this is what our program does, is it frees spiritual energy that is trapped in the alcoholic, twisted to do their will. It frees that energy up, pours it back into society, thus healing the alcoholic and healing society. And I'll just end with this. My favorite, and I mentioned this, my favorite saying that describes this is by Browning, the poet. He said, the whole point is to set the imprisoned splendor free. And I think that's such a beautiful description of the 12th step, is to set the splendor free. So that's
very
what
cool.
Yeah, check it out,
Michael. It's a great story. Your journey itself is a great journey, and the book sounds fascinating. I'm always sort of curious about, whatever the origins of this 12-step program that has saved so many people. And it just seems, like a religion in a lot of ways that really helps people. And it clearly has many, many sources, whether it's, Christianity or Buddhism, but I've never thought of the hero's journey as one of the sources or touchstones, and I'd be very curious to check that out. That sounds very cool.
Yeah, I'll just say that it's, in my opinion, if you look at cultures, and this is what Joseph Campbell did, right? Here with the Thousand Faces. He took cultures across time and he looked at the motifs in these stories, the Great Flood, the belly of the whale. He took all of these things and he said, how are all these things, how are they appearing in Australia and the Aborigines and in India and in Native America? How does that happen? And Carl Jung would say it happens because all these stories are part of the collective unconscious, and we all share this pool of unconsciousness. It's the wisdom of humanity, if you will. And I think that Bill Wilson reached into his collective unconscious and pulled out this archetype, pulled out this pattern of transformation called the hero's journey. And when he did the steps, he was probably unaware that he was building the hero's journey step by step by step by step. So what I hope people get from this book, and what I got from writing it and researching it, is that this 12-step program transcends religions. It transcends everything, because it unites us with the common experience of humans. And it's been part of our stories since humans have been telling stories.
Sure.
And that's why, in my opinion, it's so powerful, and that's why it's able to heal.
Awesome. Well, cool. Well, I'll definitely share a link to it. And thanks for coming on. Really appreciate talking to you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. If any of your listeners are interested, they can go to thewisdomoftherooms.com. They can download a free sample of that book, The Wisdom of the Rooms, and they can download a free sample of The Hero's Journey if they're interested. And they can sign up and get a free wisdom quote every Monday. So there you have it.